Hi, my name is Dave Johnston, and I'm Assistant Professor of the Practice of Marine Conservation and Ecology here at Duke University. Here at Duke, I work on the on pressing conservation issues associated with marine vertebrates and their habitat needs. And so this focuses on things like changes in sea ice, but also on the effects of harassment on animals, a very broad range of things that I work on. Right now I'm really fascinated by crab-eater seals. Crab-eater seals are really amazing seals that live in the Southern Ocean, and they feed on krill. They have teeth that are designed to allow them to strain krill from the water, very much like a baleen whale does, and I find that really fascinating. And we know very little about their populations, and we know very little about their biology and ecology, and so I'm very excited about them right now. I've really been excited about science for a long time. Probably got most interested in science starting in my grade 6 biology class, and was very interested in marine science, and I think that really took hold when I got to do my very first scuba diving trip down in the Caribbean. One other thing that I wanted to do while I was growing up was be an astronaut, and that didn't pan out, but being underwater is probably next to the, is probably very similar, and I'm very excited about it. So I got interested in ocean acoustics when I was working for a nonprofit in Canada, and we were very interested in the effects of ocean noise on harbor porpoises, a species that I studied for my dissertation work. And they're very sensitive to sound, especially to the sounds that humans make in the ocean, and so I was very intrigued to learn more about how important sound is for marine animals. In terms of my favorite ocean sound, I think I'd probably have to go with, right now, I'd have to go with the feeding calls of coordinated feeding humpback whales in Alaska. They make these very eerie calls that sort of act like metronomes that help keep their group organized when they feed. And it's one of those sounds that's so loud that if you're quiet in the boat and you turn the engine off, you can actually hear it. And you can hear them making these calls, and then when you know they're coming up when the calls stop. So it's a really amazing sound.
Hi, my name is Heather Heenahan. I am a PhD student at the Duke Marine Lab, and I study the sounds of Hawaiian spinner dolphins and their acoustic environment. So not only the sounds that they make, but also how they're interacting with the sounds around them. My favorite science fact related to my field and related to spinner dolphin sound is that they actually can make sound that's more than 5 times what we can hear, so well beyond our hearing range. I've liked science for quite a long time. I actually learned to love the ocean and the animals that live in the ocean by coming here to North Carolina. My family visited the Outer Banks of North Carolina almost every summer when I was little, and it was there that I really learned to love the ocean. So it's kind of nice to be back here now. When I was little, I wanted to be either a vet or to study dolphins when I grew up. So I count myself pretty lucky that I'm here and doing just that. What got me excited about science was definitely from when I was very, very young. But in college, I was able to do a project on acoustics, and that's sort of what got me started on this sound in the sea path. My favorite ocean acoustic sound is, there's a little bit of a story to this. So the very first time that I heard a spinner dolphin whistle, I was actually in the water. we were taking pictures of our equipment. And at that very moment, the logger was recording. So it's really cool that you can see the very first spinner dolphin whistle I ever heard. I've heard a lot more since then, but that's probably my favorite ocean acoustic sound.
So my name is Andy Reed, and I'm the Stephen Toth Professor of Marine Biology at Duke University. And I work mainly in marine conservation biology. I try and understand why populations of animals become endangered and what we can do to help them. So a science-related fact in my field, so an interesting one that pertains to acoustics is that in humpback whales, the males sing songs, and those songs change continuously over the course of the breeding season, so that if you go and listen to a humpback whale song at the beginning of the breeding season, it'll sound quite different at the end of the breeding season when the animals are finished mating. You don't understand how that works or why that works, but it's kind of a cool fact. I've liked science for as long as I can remember, from when I was in grade school. And when I grew up, when I was a kid, I wanted to either be a scientist or a professional soccer player. And the whole soccer thing didn't work out for me, so here I am, a scientist. I like science, and I got interested in science in acoustics in particular because acoustics gives us a window into the world of animals underwater that we can't see from above the water. So I spent a lot of time bobbing around on boats looking for whales, and it turns out that we can learn a lot from them by listening to them underwater with hydrophones and other recording apparatuses that tells us stories that we can't begin to be able to tell from just watching animals at the surface. My favorite ocean acoustic sound is the call of the walrus. So male walruses make this really cool sound. They engage in a behavior that we refer to as lekking, in which the males display for females in a breeding arena, so they're showing off to the girls, and as part of that display they make this crazy bell sound that has a gong in it, and if you heard it you'd never believe an animal was making it. So it's just the craziest sound you'll ever hear, and it's amazing to think that an animal would produce a sound like that.
Hi, my name is Joy Stanistreet. I'm a graduate student here at the Duke Marine Lab, and I study marine mammals using passive acoustic monitoring, which involves deploying instruments out in the ocean to record the sounds produced by whales and dolphins. We can leave these instruments out for up to 6 to 8 months at a time, and then collect the recordings and analyze them for marine mammal sounds, which is a great way to understand when and how often different marine mammal species are present at a particular location. For my current research, my study area is offshore of Cape Hatteras, North Carolina, and I'm particularly interested in recording sperm whales and beaked whales in this region. These species spend most of their time underwater and dive to really deep depths while hunting for prey, which makes them difficult to see at the surface because they don't spend a lot of time up there. However, because they use echolocation to hunt for prey, we can record the echolocation sounds and then identify them to a particular species, which makes acoustic monitoring a great way to study them. It's exciting for me to be doing the work I'm doing now. I've loved the ocean and wanted to study whales ever since I was a little kid, and I took advantage of every opportunity I had to learn about marine biology. I first started using acoustics to study whales during a summer internship while I was in college, and that eventually led me to the work I'm doing now. Let's see, my favorite ocean sound is probably humpback whale song, because even though scientists have been studying it for many years, it's still such a mystery to us all, and I love listening to it.
My name is Jerry Moxley, a PhD candidate with the Marine Conservation Ecology Group and Marine Geospatial Ecology Lab at Duke University. I study animal movement and wildlife ecology, trying to understand how, where, and when animals go to survive and forage and reproduce. Specifically, I focus on gray seals in the Northwest Atlantic and along the Northeast U.S., analyzing their offshore movements, foraging ecology, and search theory. One fact that I like to remind myself when studying gray seals is that their whiskers on their face can track prey fish from over 100 feet away, which would be like, you know, me using my beard to track animals. I've liked science as a subject since high school, but it wasn't really until college, my freshman year of college, when I took I was forced to take a class in evolutionary ecology, that I decided to focus my career on research in wildlife questions. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a fighter pilot in middle school, and then during high school I kind of switched that to trying to do something with the music industry, either as a musician or something in the recording industry. And my favorite ocean acoustic sound is being a surfer. I like the sound of a crashing wave, particularly when there's an offshore wind kind of blowing spray from that crashing wave onto the nose of my surfboard as I bob in the ocean and try to catch the coming swell.
My name is Goldie Phillips. I'm a PhD student in the Marine Science and Conservation Department at Duke University. I am looking at the effects of human-generated noise on dolphin whistles. A fun fact that's related to my field is that dolphins actually hear through their jaws, which is really interesting to me because they have ear canals like humans do, except that theirs is filled with wax and debris, so it's non-functional. So sound actually gets conducted through their jaws instead of the ear canals like in us, to their middle ears. I have liked science since my very first high school biology class. I had a very enthusiastic teacher, and I guess her enthusiasm was somewhat contagious. So when I was in middle school, I pretty much knew that I wanted to be a marine biologist. I've always been fascinated with the ocean and the life within it. I grew up on an island. I'm from Trinidad and Tobago, so marine biologist just seemed like the best career path for me. I became interested in acoustics specifically because I wanted to do something that I thought would make a difference, and after some thought I figured that would be looking at how the oil and gas industry in my country is affecting the dolphins that are found there. And my favorite ocean acoustic sound would have to be the bearded seal because it was the first marine mammal sound that I heard in the wild, and I just remember thinking that this is a really cool sound and it's very alien in nature, so that's why it's my favorite.
So my name is Douglas Nowacek. I am an associate professor here at Duke in the Nicholas School of the Environment and also in the Pratt School of Engineering. I lucked into a very cool position that is, the title of it is Marine Conservation Technology, and so the job description, if you will, is to work on new technologies for marine conservation research. So I get to work with both engineers, natural scientists and social scientists to work on marine conservation and basic marine research. So great position, I'm quite lucky. So what kind of work I do, I work a lot of time in front of the computer writing proposals, but we also do a lot of field work with humpback whales, right whales, dolphins, bottlenose dolphins, and we do things like record the sounds they make, the sounds they hear.
We put tags on them to record all that kind of stuff. And then we do a lot of analysis and writing papers. And writing papers seems a little daunting when you get started, but it's really pretty satisfying because you get to see all the products that you've put together come together in a really coherent paper that explains something and shows some data. So it's a really rewarding thing. Science fact related to my field. One that's really memorable is that beaked whales, which are a kind of whale, and that's sort of a medium-sized toothed whale, so they have teeth and not baleen, that they can dive to 3,000 meters. So the deepest tag ever gone on one was to 2,940 meters. And remember, that's in meters and not in feet. So that's 3,000 meters is something like 10,000 feet below the surface of the ocean. So that's a most people don't believe that, but it's true. How long have I liked science? I've liked science ever since I was a kid, for sure. And I think what most kids like science, they just don't think of it as science always. But when you're outside wandering around, why is, where did that crab come from? Why is this sand all piled up on the side of the beach like that? How come it melts away when the water hits it? So I've liked science for a long time, and I think most of you probably do too. What did I want to be when I grew up? So I had two paths that I was working towards. One was to become a doctor, a pediatrician, and take care of kids. And the other one was to do something in natural science. And how I decided on that was really, I just tried both, and I really thought that both of them would have been really rewarding. But at some point, which was right before I went to graduate school, I had an opportunity to go into oceanography, and I jumped at it. I thought it would be something new and something exciting, and I'm glad for that decision every day. I think being a pediatrician would have been pretty cool too, to help kids get better. Just a different lifestyle. So I certainly don't regret it. I'm glad I made the choice I did. What got me interested in science and acoustics? Honestly, it was the way that marine mammals, and specifically the cetaceans, or the whales and dolphins, use sound. How they make sound, how they receive sound, what they can do with it, how incredibly flexible they are in the sounds they make, and how impressive they are with how they use those sounds. Even the anatomy in their bodies that they use to make and hear sound, you wouldn't believe. Some of you probably already seen some of it, but it's pretty impressive. And then finally, my favorite ocean acoustic sound, and why, and I've talked a lot about whales and dolphins, but actually my favorite sound is from a walrus. And walruses make all sorts of different kinds of sounds. Sean's going to have to find one for you to put into this video, but there's a lot. You should ask him how many he found actually when he was looking for them. So have fun.
Speak. Roar. Talk. Growl. Sputter. Rumble. Whistle. Bell.
My name is Amy Boucher. I'm a Master's of Environmental Management student here at Duke. What my work entails is listening and examining Rousseau's dolphins' vocalization responses to other cetacean calls. A science fact I would like to tell you guys is that dolphins have exceptionally good hearing and can detect a change of 0.2% in frequency, similar to the human hearing. I've liked science ever since I was a kid, but especially in middle school when I had an awesome teacher who worked at the New England Aquarium in Boston, Massachusetts. I got interested especially in marine bioacoustics after this past summer interning at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. And my favorite ocean acoustic sound is the minke whale because it sounds like a Star Wars lightsaber.
My name is Jim Hench. I'm an assistant professor at the Duke University Marine Laboratory in Beaufort, North Carolina. I am a physical oceanographer, and I spend my time studying ocean circulation and transport processes in the ocean. I focus on shallow water systems like estuaries and coral reefs and try to understand the physical mechanisms that drive flow in these systems, whether that's wind, waves, or density differences, or rotation. Let's see, science fact. So one interesting fact in my line of work is that it involves a lot of work on computers. The instruments and the models that we use collect a lot of data really quickly, and it's often a fair bit of work to analyze and understand what those data are saying. And so there's a rule of thumb in physical oceanography, and the rule of thumb goes something like, for every week you spend in the field collecting data, you take that amount of time and raise it to some power n, where n is a number between, say, 3 or 4, and that's the number of hours you spend processing the data. So a couple weeks in the field can buy you about a year behind a computer thinking about what those data have in them. So that part's also fun too. Let's see, I couldn't tell you a specific pivotal moment when I started liking science. I grew up always liking math. My dad was a math teacher in high school, and over time I came to appreciate how useful math could be in solving engineering problems or more fundamental problems related to science. So I've been lucky that way in knowing what I've liked from early on. When I was growing up, I had, I guess my favorite thing to do growing up was to go surfing. And if you asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up in 7th grade or 8th grade, I would have told you something like, I'd like to be basically a traveling kind of hippie surfer person. And I would subsist somehow by taking photos or writing articles for Surfer magazine or something like that. And so it's kind of interesting now to think how that's played out for me, because I do travel all over the world, and I spend my time thinking about waves, and I actually write about waves, not for Surfer magazine, but for scientific journals. So I somehow found a more legit way of doing what I really wanted to do in year 7 and 8. Let's see, acoustics. So I use acoustics a lot in my research, and I first got interested in acoustics when I was a graduate student. When I first started graduate school, I got to use one of the early broadband acoustic Doppler current profilers. And it's a device that we use to measure ocean currents and ocean turbulence using a type of sonar or set of sonar beams. And I remember the first data that we collected with this broadband ADCP, it just blew me away. I could not believe that we could actually measure a profile of the ocean currents with sound. And so I was really excited by that, and I started incorporating that instrument into my research. And this is an example of one of these acoustic Doppler current profilers, a much more modern version of it that actually came out of the ocean not too long ago. This had spent 5 years in the South Pacific measuring ocean currents down there, and it's been refurbished now. My favorite acoustic sound in the ocean would have to be breaking waves. I love that sound. And interestingly, or at least interesting to me, is that in working on some of the coral reefs in French Polynesia, I've interacted with the local Tahitians about what's the name for this current, what's the Tahitian name for this flow. And what they told me was that they don't think of the ocean in the way that we do, like, oh, that's the Gulf Stream, that has a name. The way they think of features is by their sound. And so if you point to a place on the island and say, what's the name of the flow through the pass there, the way they describe that is it's named by the sound that the water makes for that location. And so in some places the waves the bottom's very steep and the waves crash, and it makes a sound specific to that place. And so they think about the ocean a lot in terms of the sounds it makes. I still am trying to tune my ear to have that kind of ability to discern things, but that's one of my favorite sounds.
Hi, my name is Julia Burrows. I'm a PhD student here at Duke Marine Lab. I study humpback whale foraging behavior and foraging ecology. This means how whales are acting and behaving when they're looking for their food, how they're finding their food, what type of food they're eating. So basically everything related to food. A science fact related to my field is that baleen whales, which are the type of whale humpbacks are, can take in an amazing amount of water in their mouth at once. They actually don't have teeth at all. They have something called baleen, which is like your hair and your fingernails. And what they do is they take in the amount of water equivalent to a swimming pool in your backyard in their mouth at once. And then they'll use their tongue to push this water out through the baleen place, much like how you would filter, your mom filters a pot of spaghetti, and you catch the food and you let the water out. So that's how these whales feed, and it's a pretty neat way, pretty cool way that they do it. I've liked science since I can remember. In elementary school and middle school, science were always my favorite classes, but I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. Watching the Olympics right now, I seem to remember wanting to be an Olympic athlete. So I always liked science, but I didn't have a specific field in mind. So if you're not exactly sure yet what you want to do, that's okay. You have plenty of time to figure it out. I first got interested in science and acoustics. Like I said, I've been interested in it for a long time, but this specific field, what I'm doing now, by going out on boats and watching wildlife and watching nature. It was absolutely amazing, and it totally hooked me, and that's what helped me figure out what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And my favorite ocean acoustic sound is the sound of humpback whales in the water. They sing these amazing songs in their breeding grounds, and in their feeding grounds they actually vocalize too to help coordinate their behavior. And it's just this really neat, unique, haunting sound that you'll get to hear, and it's something that stays with you since it's so special.
Hello everyone, my name is Sean Stanton and I'm a Coastal Environmental Management Master's student here at Duke Marine Labs. The work that I've done while I've been here really has been looking at the environmental impacts of human-generated noise, so the anthropogenic noise that's been produced along the Kona coast of Hawaii. A science-related fact that relates to this would be that the huge container ships or the freighters or the cruise ships, those big ships that you see out in the ocean, the sound that's generated from those ships can actually travel hundreds of miles. And so when you think about as many big ships that are out there, the cruise ships, the Navy ships, the freighters, that generates a lot of noise that's going to be impacting the marine mammals around the oceans around the world. And so I've liked science probably since high school, when I was able to go out on a 3-masted sailing ship and do some marine biology and island ecology along the coast of California and the Channel Islands. And so that was a really eye-opening experience for me and showed me how much I could really like science when it's in an atmosphere, the ocean, that I enjoy. When I was littler, I really wanted to be a Marine Corps helicopter pilot. Everyone in my family's been in the Marine Corps, and it was just something that I grew up around, but obviously that's changed to be more scientific and more about the ocean. My favorite acoustic sound would have to be the fart of a manatee. Everybody farts, yeah, it's funny, but the manatee fart is the funniest sound you will ever hear.